out of the storm yet. No, but this is how we've been praying all week long. If you didn't come through this time, it'd be the first time. Well, that'll help you. I don't know if it'll help you. It helped me. If you don't come through this time, that'll be the first time. What is that? That's that hope. When you look at it and go, what are we going to do? And you go, I don't know. I don't know what we're going to do. How's it going to happen? I don't know. Well, what should we do? Keep moving forward? Why? Because he's never failed yet. Not one time. Not once. He's faithful. He's just a good God. He's just a good God. It'd be real easy for me tonight just to divert and just brag on his goodness. It's necessary some days when you're going through things and nothing is working out, nothing is fit right, nothing's help. It's good just to take the time and just start thinking about how good God is. Just quit worrying about how bad your problem is. Quit worrying about how big the problem is. Quit worrying about, how it's never going to, just start thinking about God's goodness, and it'll help reshape the way you're thinking. And without even realizing it, you'll look at your problem totally different on the other side of that. It's like, oh, you know what? With as big as God is, that's not as big a problem as we thought. When you start putting it into perspective of eternity, what's it going to look like in 100 million years? It really isn't all that big of a deal. And it really does shape things. And so we're grateful for a God who can help right in the middle of it. Take your Bible to Proverbs 25. Proverbs 25, we're going to try to continue on our thought here through the chapter. I will not read any text verses because we're going to march down through the verses together. We've read this text a few times already, and I want to just jump right in to hopefully be more mindful of your time. We try to expedite some of the singing so we could spend extra time in prayer tonight. I will tell you this, we can't make too much of an emphasis of prayer. If anything, we need more time in prayer corporately, not less. I know some people, when you pray and you're praying for 10, 15, 20 minutes as a church, people get the idea like, well, this is taking too long. Maybe we've missed what we're here for. To meet with God, get alone with Him. How do you think that happens if not through prayer? And so appreciate that time. And it's been encouraging and a help to me already. So I want to be a blessing and a help to you. It truly is my heart to be a help to you. So here in the chapter, what we've looked at already is in verse 1 and 2, we've seen God's comfortability with concealed, or as we saw in Sunday school, secret things. His comfortability in the secrecy. And now, what is incredible about that is in verse 3, we found God's ability to reveal hidden things. Because secret things and hidden things aren't the same thing. You need to get a hold of that. You're trying to hide things from God, it'll be revealed, but He is found in secret. And so God's comfortability with the secret things, but His revealing of hidden things. And then verses 4 and 5, we found God's process of removing hidden impurities. His process there of refining silver. Take away the dross. Take away the dross. The dross is that which is in silver that doesn't look like anything until the heat is applied and it rises to the surface. And so God has a process by which He refines silver. He puts it in the furnace and He heats things up. And that's oftentimes why things are the way they are during those difficult days, because it is God's highlighting of them. But then the emphasis was, okay, this is what the problem is, but watch, you take it away. God brings it to the surface. Brother Brian was talking about through failures. He'll accent or he'll highlight those sometimes. And then he says, okay, what are you going to do about it? And so Solomon's writing to a son, and he's warning in this that this is good for a king in verse 5. Take away the wicked from before the king, and his throne shall be established in righteousness. And there's some things that are in the kingdom that need to be removed in order for it to go well. And so he's going to start from verse 6, a list of things that are dangers that are found hidden in all of us. I want to look at these dangers tonight and try to dig into some of these a little bit. And Lord willing, we won't deviate a whole lot from our chapter for sake of time, but I pray that the Lord would bring some verses to your heart in connection to some of these truths. Look at verse 6. He's going to tell him, put not forth thyself in the presence of the king, and stand not in the place of great men. For better it is that it be said unto thee, come up hither, than that thou shouldst be put lower in the presence of the prince whom thine eyes have seen. So in verse number 6, he's going to give a danger in promoting oneself. In promoting oneself. He says, put not forth thyself in the presence of the king. Meaning, you better be very careful. There's a danger in self-promotion because, as we'll find with all of these, there's a shame attached to them. There's a shame that's associated with all of these things. And here's the reasoning. All right, let's do it this way. Come back to Proverbs 18, and then I'll give you an illustration at the end of this. Proverbs 18, look at verse 16. Proverbs 18, verse 16 says, a man's gift maketh room for him, and bringeth him before where? Bringeth him before great men. So he tells you, put not forth thyself in the presence of the king, and stand not in the place of great men. So don't do it yourself. Don't try to weasel your way in. Don't try to force your way in. Don't promote yourself or put yourself into those situations, but rather let it come naturally as a byproduct of what God has given you. That gifting, that gift, if you'll really believe that God is able to give you what you need, then what he gives you is what you need. And what he doesn't give you is also something that you should say, okay, I must need that. But oftentimes you and I will promote ourselves, and it's taught to us in our culture. You understand? It is bred into us. It is promoted to us. It is ingrained in us that the way to succeed in life is no one's going to promote you. You've got to do it. So you need to go to your boss and tell him you need a raise. It used to be that in church, we wouldn't go to the boss's office. We'd go to God. We'd pray and ask God to give a raise. Now we say, I'm the best employee you have. Be careful promoting yourself. Be careful. I've seen people get that raise and lose the job. I mean, very short order. Oh, you got that $2 an hour raise, and now you're jobless. Filing for unemployment. Was it worth it? Seemed like that raise sure cost money, didn't it? Look back in Proverbs 25 and notice the contrast to this in verse 14. So a man's gift maketh room for him, and bringeth him before great men. But verse 14, whoso boasteth himself of a false gift is like clouds and wind without rain. You ever seen it get real dark, real cloudy, and you go, oh, it's about to rain? Like, was it yesterday? Was it yesterday? It even spit a couple of times, and it was like, oh, it's about to rain. And then Colorado happened. Oh, it's going to rain. Look how dark the sky is. It's cold. It was good. It's rainy season. Not a chance. No rain. Isn't that disappointing? When you're like, oh, that's going to, and it doesn't. You say, what is that? Well, the wind and the rain, The idea here is that it looks the part, but there's no substance. Whoso boasteth himself of a false gift. It looks the part, you can talk the part, but you don't deliver. It's the carpenter who comes in and says, oh yeah, we'll do this, this, and this. Have it all done in a week and a half. And you're going, I thought that was a 3-month project. Newsflash, it probably is. Oh, no, we'll get it done. It'll be great and it'll be wonderful and we'll have it to be, and we will half the price, just we need it up front. Oh, let's do it. That's a good way to lose money. Say, what is it? It's a boasting of a false gift. We'll do this and this and this. Instead of how we were taught, under promise and over produce. Why? Because a man's gift has a way of making room for himself. You understand, word of mouth is still the best way to get business? Happy customers? We spend more time in our society investing in marketing than quality. Talk to customer service. It's a pain in the neck. You know why? Because there's a bigger marketing budget than a customer service budget. Because quality control isn't nearly as important as image control and damage control. That's the problem. Put not forth, go back to verse 6, thyself in the presence of the king. Put not forth thyself in the presence of the king. Here's the illustration. You're familiar enough with the story that we're not going to turn there, but it's Esther. Remember Haman? Here's what he said. To whom would the king delight to do honor more than myself? To whom would the king delight to do honor more than myself? There just couldn't be anybody that he'd want to, honor more than me. You know what he left with? He left ashamed that day. Why? Put not forth thyself. Now consider this. Here he went in, hoping for the pat on the back and left with the pat on the rear. And he left disappointed that day. Versus the very previous or the next chapter, I can't remember which one now. Esther spends time fasting and humbles herself. And here's her approach. If I perish, I perish. And here's what the Bible said about her. She obtained favor in his sight. So one of them went in going, to whom would the king delight to do honor more than myself? Self-promotion. And here's the best part. He talked himself into his biggest shame. Because here he's going, oh, what do I want? I want the king's horse. I want the king's ring. I want the king's applause. I want everybody to think of me like I'm the king. And he comes in, guns a-blazing, and the king's like, that's perfect. Do it to Mordecai. Imagine if he had done that, answered that question as if he was giving it to Mordecai. Someone else. Put not forth thyself in the presence of the king. Well, we far too often want to weasel our way, force our way, push our way into promotion. And I've got news for you. It may work for you at times in society. It will never work for you in spiritual things. It'll never work spiritually. We falsely presume other people think as much of us as we do. To whom would the king delight to do honor more than myself? You know what he thinks? He thinks a lot of himself. So his assumption is, so does the king. You know what the problem was? Not so much. And look, the king thought highly of Haman. But in that instance, he wasn't thinking about Haman. You know who Haman was thinking about? All Haman all the time. You know who you think about? All you all the time. So how do you know that? No man yet ever hateth his own self, right? I mean, we love ourselves. And it's part of the list of perilous times is that men would be lovers of their own selves. You know how we know it? Selfies. We love ourselves. We love to look at ourselves. Even when we look at ourselves and say, I don't like myself, let's do another. Oh, I look so bad, I'm going to take 87 more till I find one I like. You know what that means? You really like you. So we just assume everybody else would think of us like we think. Which is why, by the way, when someone is having a bad day and they look a bit, you immediately think it's about you. Because you just assume since you're thinking about you, they must be thinking about you. And you can't wrap in our minds that they may possibly actually be thinking about someone other than you. Of course they're not thinking about something other than me. I'm the center of the universe. And there's danger in that because it produces a shame. You say, what's the shame? Verse 7. You might just find yourself lowered instead of exalted. Now, here's the caveat to this. And the shame is this. I'm going to word it this way because of consistency throughout the rest of the outline. Would be this. Here's the shame. Oh, I'm not supposed to be here. That should be a shame. In the Bible, there's a man who comes to Joab after Absalom is dead. And he goes, let me run. Let me run. And he goes, you have no tidings prepared. And he's like, let me run. And he tells, I love it, he tells another man, he says, go tell the king what you've seen today. Isn't that interesting? He didn't prepare tidings for him. He just said, you saw? Yep, go tell him. Wisdom was trusted. And by the way, later on in the chat, he's a faithful messenger. But he goes ahead and he runs. And then this man still comes to him. He's like, let me run. Let me run. I can run. And he can run. Because between where they are and where David is, he outruns the other runner. That's pretty good. He gets there. He's like, oh, king, live forever. And David's like, what about Absalom? He's like, ha. And amazingly, he's like, I didn't think you'd ask. You were told not to go for that very reason. You'd think on the way, for us in our day, it's like going to a job not knowing what you're doing. At least YouTube it. At least pretend, right? You'd think he would at least have watched a 10-minute video on how to answer the king about a dead son. You'd think. It didn't even cross his mind. He's like, I won't have to deal with that. Of course you will. That's what he's going to ask about. So he gets all the way there, and the very thing I want to give the king a message. He's like, well, what's the message? Oh, I don't know. So here's the king. Here, go stand over there. I'm waiting for that guy. I want to be the one that gets to tell the king. And he got there first. But don't you think it's a bit of a shame to be a messenger and told, move aside, I need to hear what he has to say? Okay. Alexis here. I got something to tell you. And you're like, hold on, I don't want to talk to you. I want to hear what he has to say. What? Nobody loves me. That's how you act. They didn't care what I had to think. Well, you say, what was it? It was a shame. It's a shame to a messenger to not get to hear the message. Why? Because you weren't ready. Because you promoted thyself. Put not forth thyself in the presence of a king. You know what that messenger did? Literally put himself in the presence of a king when he shouldn't have been there. And so you know what happened? Here he was with his opportunity and he squandered it. He missed it. Look at verse 7. Verse 7. For better it is that it be said unto thee, and I'm going to hurry more, come up hither, that thou shouldst be put lower, than that thou shouldst be put lower in the presence of the prince whom thine eyes have seen. Now this one I'm going to make a present day application to, because Jesus deals with this in the book of Luke. You're familiar with that. This principle is reiterated, and that is the principle of the passage. But I want to make a current day assessment from this principle, and that is this. We live in a culture, I don't know why it is this way, but it is, where there are a lot of prove it in our society, and there's a danger in prove I'm your favorite culture. So there's a lot of wives who are trying to make their husbands prove they're the favorite. Like, if I squirt mustard on the counter, what do? Or walk in and videoing them, here, click, make me a sandwich. That's a setup. How you know that? The camera. That was the first giveaway. And then get all mad when they don't. Well, how could you? Well, why are you trying to prove it to me? The idea of these little games and tests in our culture of proving that, and listen, kids, this is something we've done for years, little kids especially, and that is, we prove you're my best friend. Prove I'm your best friend. The idea of that, it's dangerous. Why? Because there's a shame when, what happens if you're not? Dejection. Shame. You can keep me at the top? Actually, no. What do you mean? Actually, there's somebody else that I had planned to sit there. I need you to find another seat now. I can't believe he'd do that. Look, today, we'd get mad at the host. Are you listening? Our culture would say, it's rude of the host. No, it's rude for you to come think you're top-billed person. That's where the shame is. Coming in thinking you deserve to be number one. That's the shameful thing. The danger in prove I'm your favorite is you may not be. Again, we tend to falsely presume that other people think as much of us as we do. You know what I know about taste buds? You know what I know about taste buds? Everybody's are different. You know how I know that? Because some people don't like chocolate. And that's just shameful. It's pitiful. I feel real bad for you, Miss Martha. I mean, I love you, but I just worry sometimes. Had she spent her whole life smoking, it makes sense. But, you know, Miss Martha's, you understand? Like, she doesn't like coffee. What's wrong with people that don't like coffee? Lacey doesn't like chocolate. It's just people have weird taste buds. And then some people like fish. A lot of people like fish. You know what the problem with fish is? It tastes fishy. And everybody's like, oh, try this fish. It's not fishy. If it's not fishy, why eat fish? That's like eating chicken, hoping it don't taste chickeny. What's the point? If I want fish that doesn't taste like fish, I'll eat chicken. And you're going, yeah, you have weird taste buds. I know, they're all different. So here's the funny part. You make something, you know what we do? We eat something, we go somewhere, we find something. And we're like, that's my favorite. It's my favorite thing. Whatever it is, doesn't matter. My favorite dessert I've ever had is this. You got to try it. So we bring it to somebody else. And we're like, oh, this is so good. Here's what I want. I really don't care if you like it. I want you to affirm my liking of it. Because we're so stuck on ourselves that even offering something that is good really isn't even about you getting good. It's about me getting pleased that I picked best. Seriously. So we're like, isn't this the best thing ever? And he's like, nah, I've had better. I'll smack you in the body. Like, what you mean you've had better? You ain't never had better. We get all offended. And you know what's funny about that? Is all it does is it reveals we're more stuck on us than actually providing something for someone else. We're thinking about us too much. And we get the false pretense that other people are as well. But here's the thing about food, and this is what makes this the perfect analogy. Nobody ever eats for anybody else. We always eat for us. Where do you want to go? I don't care, you pick. I want to go here. No, I don't like that place. Thought you said let me pick. Well, I did want you to pick. I wanted you to pick where I like. Well, guess what? This is the danger in you better pick my favorite place, because they're not going to pick your favorite place when you tell them to pick theirs. That's the danger. We just falsely assume people are going to think about us instead of themselves. Look at the next verse, verse 8. Go not forth hastily to strive, lest thou know not what to do in the end thereof when thy neighbor hath put thee to shame. Go not forth hastily to strive, lest thou know not what to do in the end thereof when thy neighbor hath put thee to shame. So here it is. We've come across a problem, and we're going to fix it. Let's confront it right now. We're going to go forth hastily to strive. Look, there's a problem. I've got a problem with you. I know enough. And here's it. The danger is in presuming you're fully aware. Because when you go to your neighbor, here's what it says. It says, in the end thereof, you don't know what to do, and your neighbor hath put thee to shame. You don't know what to do because you didn't come in with all the facts. Oh, so here's the shame. Here's the shame. Oh, I didn't know. We assume, oh, I didn't know, isn't shameful. That's the shame that he's put to. You're supposed to be aware, but you walked in with one-sided information and presumed to know. And I'll tell you why we do that. Because if what we know is what affects us, then we assume that must be what's true. Our generation, kids, y'all's generation especially, is going to have it twice as bad. And that is this. We think that just because we're offended by something, we're right. Offense doesn't prove anything other than that you have feelings. That's all it proves. You have feelings. Because you can be offended and wrong. I know a lot of people who get offended if you say LeBron James isn't the best basketball player in the world, but they're just wrong. So you can be offended and wrong. So there's a danger in promoting yourself. That shame that comes with that is you might be put lower Oh, I'm not supposed to be here. There's a danger in prove it to me culture, and that's, you may not be. There's a danger in presuming you're fully aware when you only have one-sided information, and that shame is, oh, I didn't know. You ever run your mouth and then learn more and be like, oh, I just didn't know. Now look, we think in our day that justifies what we said, and it doesn't. Not scripturally. You shouldn't have said it. Oh, I just didn't know. Right. So you shouldn't have come at me like that. Go not forth hastily to strive. The key word there is hastily. That's the key word. You just jumped at the chance. Look at verse 9. Debate thy cause with thy neighbor himself. Discover not a secret to another. There's a danger in pulling others into it. There's a problem. I got a problem with so-and-so. Well, you better be careful, because there's a danger in pulling others into it. Look what the danger is of this one, verse 10. Lest he that heareth it put thee to shame, and thine infamy turn not away. Here's the shame in pulling others into it. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. You ever have to say those type of things? Oh, I walked into that. I shouldn't have. Oh, I said that. I shouldn't have. Oh, I didn't know. When we get to the place where those shameful acts, that's what the Bible called them, they're shameful, are just, oh, well, it's problematic. It's problematic because that is dross that's been risen to the surface that God wants you to put away. And the rising to the surface, here's what it's to show you. You're stuck on you and assuming everyone else is. You're full of you. And God's saying, see, if you get rid of that, you could really be something. And we leave going, boy, if these idiots would ever get on the same page as me, they could really be going somewhere. And God goes, you missed it. You missed it. That wasn't the point. The point wasn't to show you their ignorance. It was to show you something you were blind to. Notice this. Here's the danger of pulling others into it. Instead of being on your side, they may actually correct you. I thought you'd be on my side. Why would I do that? Because I'm your friend. Well, if I'm your friend, I should tell you the truth. And by the way, just so you're aware, a great rule of thumb, you should always defend an absent party. Always. Why? Well, they're not there to speak for themselves. I don't know why they did it, but maybe they had a reason. No, they couldn't have had a reason. Well, maybe. You ever have a reason that somebody else couldn't see? Of course. Well, then. Look at verse 18. Verse 18 shows you what's so damaging about this. A man that beareth false witness against his neighbor is a maul, and a sword, and a sharp arrow. Now, I think there's an entire message in those three things. I really do. I'm not going to preach it as an entire message, but here's what I've gotten so far from that. A maul is something that you use to drive a wedge. You understand, when you're cleaving wood asunder, you would put a wedge in and you take a maul and you'd beat that. And so a man that beareth false witness, now think about it. Now you're bringing someone else into it. And the only reason why I'm coming to Francisco about Jeremiah is I want him on my side, not his. And whether you realize it or not, what you are doing is you're trying to divide this. Here's what you're doing. You're saying, all right, it's me or him. You have to choose. But you better not choose that loser, liar, false witness. Make him look bad. And the shame is that he might just come back and say, you understand, he's right. And you're wrong. And this is wrong. Which is why it would have been a whole lot better for you just to go to him instead, trying to pull somebody else into it. Because it's a mall. It divides. In this, a maul, if you get hit with that, will bruise. You understand? Listen now, it'll bruise. Meaning it would hurt you below the surface. Oh, I can't believe Jeremiah would do that. That hits different. I'll show you where it hits. Look at Proverbs 26, verse 22. The words of a talebearer are as wounds. They go down into the innermost parts of the belly. You understand it hits deeper than the surface level. And that's the point. The point is to break up something that was good and cleave it asunder, which is the sword. So the wedge bruises it drives a wedge. A sword is used to divide. Remember Solomon? Take a sword and cut the baby in half? Piercing even to the dividing asunder, right? That sword of the Spirit. It's used to divide. Again, now watch. Whereas the bruise, the maul, is an idea of a blunt force trauma. This is a bleed it out, right? It's a cutting, cleaving, separates. It's used to divide. And then you have a sharp arrow. This sharp arrow pierces, penetrates. It is used to go deep. Understand, it's not just going to hit the skin, it's going to hit the organs. It's going to hit the heart. It's used. These words of a talebearer, of a false witness, it causes something in the other person that casts doubt, or it begins to divide. It causes problems and divisions, and that's satanic. You understand that? God hates it. And it's used when this word, and all it is you might say it's gossip. You might call it a prayer request. It's pulling others into a situation. It might even be this. Let me get your advice on something. Boy, don't you just sound spiritual, but act wicked. Why? Because if it was spiritual, you'd go to them. We don't do that. And ladies, there's a tendency for women to do this about their husbands very quickly. I have a problem, so I want to talk to a girlfriend, or I want to talk to a mom, or I want to talk to somebody who gets me, because clearly my husband doesn't. You know what that is? It's why mother-in-laws don't like son-in-laws. Because it was a maul and a sword and sharp arrows that stung deep because they hurt my baby and drove a wedge between them. And the son-in-law sometimes is like, what in the world? I don't know why my mother-in-law is such a wicked woman. She just doesn't like me. I didn't do anything wrong. The problem wasn't you. The problem was her daughter. And if you're a mom and put up with that junk, stop it. Why? You're supposed to put them to shame. Verse 10, look back at it. The debate thy cause was verse 9 with thy neighbor, right? himself, discover not a secret to another, lest he that heareth it put thee to shame, thine infamy turn not away. Hey, you're not being a good mom by letting her run her mouth. You're not being a good friend by letting her run her mouth. What you're supposed to do is put her to shame. You're not supposed to be talking about your husband like that. What are you doing? Think, what's the net benefit of running down someone like that? Yeah, but they did this, and I want somebody else to hate them too? To think ill of someone? There's danger. Danger in it. Look at verse 16. Verse 16, hast thou found honey? Eat so much as is sufficient for thee, lest thou be filled therewith and vomit it. There's a danger in pleasant things. In verse 16, it's eating food. Look at verse 17. Withdraw thy foot from thy neighbor's house, lest he be weary of thee and so hate thee. There's a danger in pleasant things. Eating food in verse 16, enjoying fellowship in verse 17. Danger. You understand there's dangers in pleasant things. What do you mean? We think so much of ourselves that when other people do nice things for us, of course we like it. Come on now, you like it when people do nice things for you. We don't even think what it does to them. We just think, I'd like more. Man, we went over to their house. They fed us so nice. I want to go back and eat at their house again because, of course you do. They fed you T-bone steak. But you know what that meant? It meant they ate beans and rice for 6 days to pay for it. So their budget balanced back out. And you want to go every third day so you can get fat on their steak. Because we don't even think about the pleasant thing they did. We just think about us. And in all of these, I hope you see that what it does is it brings to the surface a selfishness. He's revealing a dross that's in all of us. Listen, this is in you. If not all of these characteristics, some of them are in me and you. So God brings them to the surface. We want friends so we can feel good about ourselves and feel validated that we're a good friend without ever actually being a good friend. Because if you were a good friend, you wouldn't care about having friends. You'd care about being a friend. And if you want friends and don't want to be a friend, you're the problem. And so it gets brought to the surface over and over and over again. You say, why? So you can see that there's dross there. Your thinking is about you. When I was a kid, oh, it was bad. Looking hindsight, oh my. I don't know how my friend growing up had as much patience as she did with her friend. Every game, Brother Brian, if we were going to play a game together, it was going to be whatever I wanted to play. Oh, yeah. Seriously. I don't think she ever got to pick. This girl tied my shoes till I was like 10. She did. You say, wow, she's a good friend. No, I was a dog. That's taking advantage of somebody. I wasn't nearly the friend to her as she was to me. Growing up, we were best friends. She was a good friend. I wasn't. Do you understand that's in all of us? It's in all of us. So God lets you go through things to see how, okay, you're going to get rid of that? Is friendship all about you? Look at verse 27. It's not good to eat honey. Is that what it says? Is that what it says? It's not good to eat honey? Or did I skip a word? It's not good to eat much honey. Go back to verse 16. Hast thou found honey? Eat so much as is sufficient. See, here's the thing about pleasant things. Moderation. Not taking advantage of. There's danger in that. Taking advantage of someone else's goodness. You know what the danger is in that? You know what the danger is? They stop wanting to be taken advantage of. So if this is you, here's what it looks like. You go from one to the next, to the next, to the next. Why? Because as soon as you've used up all that you can get, you're looking for somebody else. And then you're going to take all you can, and then you look for somebody else. And you get all you can get out of that, and then you just keep moving on. Why? Because it's all about you. There's people that approach jobs that way. This job's all about me. Company was there before you. The company doesn't serve you, and the company will be there after you. Maybe it's not all about you. Just a thought. But what do I know? In verse 19, and we'll quit here. I'll come back and maybe hit some of this verse next week. Verse 19, confidence in an unfaithful man in time of trouble is like a broken tooth and foot out of joint. So here's the danger here. The danger is in putting confidence in men, specifically unfaithful men. Here's what this is. I know Drew can't handle it. You understand what this is saying? Putting confidence in an unfaithful man is like saying, okay, I know he can't handle this. I know this is not a good fit. He can't handle it. But watch, I'm desperate. So you know who matters more? It doesn't matter that this won't be good for him. It matters that it's good for me not to have to do it. And we just assume that other people think as much of us as we do. And so we put more on him than he should handle because we're really not thinking about him. Oh, I know, when it's your kid, you just tell them, oh, come on, toughen up. That's just called learning life. Are you sure? Because you might wind up damaging the relationship and the other party. I come from a big family. I know how it works. But listen, your oldest child didn't have the rest of your children. I know how it works, trust me. Now, the oldest in my family was Aaron. He was never that, okay? But my older sister, Sarah, mother hen. And when you got an older daughter that's a mother hen, boy, it's easy just to let them mother hen. You want to play with dolls? Here, I gave you one. Right? But you understand, that's not... Now look, listen to me. I'm trying to help you. It's good to teach them through those things. There's nothing wrong with that. But you better be really careful that you're not putting too much confidence in someone who shouldn't have it. Especially when the lives of your other children are on the line. I'd rather trust a faithful 9-year-old than an unfaithful 13-year-old. I picked a number one of my kids is. That's problematic. I'd rather trust a faithful 9-year-old than an unfaithful 16-year-old. I'm not talking about anyone of my kids, okay? Just so we're clear. Look, my son's like, really, Dad? Like, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to pick 13. I really wasn't talking about you. I really wasn't. It matters that our reasoning for things is thinking about others and not us. It really matters. Because we just think that everybody else thinks as highly of us as we do. And it's dross. That God's gracious enough to bring to the surface. And here's what he says. If you'll take that away, boy, there'd be something there. But you can leave it. And what'll happen to dross if you let it cool back down is it goes from separated to just falls back in where it always was. And things just keep going as normal. And instead of an opportunity of purification, it just looks the same as it always did. Stand to our feet.